Today's video is powered by Hawpog.
Skip it up and that up.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Rich of Review Tech USA, and I hope to God that football does not disappear. You know what? A lot of these legends and a lot of these guys who had huge contributions to gaming, I respect their opinions. I respect what they've done for the industry, and a lot of them, if it wasn't for the achievements they've had, gaming wouldn't be where it is today. But I really think because of their status and how they're considered legends, sometimes I think they just like to spread their ass cheeks and speak out of their buttholes, because I think it's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, so whatever I say will, become true, and I know what I'm talking about, and I piss wine and shit brownies, and nothing I do stinks. I don't know what that meant, but you'll get it. Moving on. So Nolan Bushnell, the Atari founder, Nolan Bushnell, the guy who's a legend who pretty much helped gaming get where it is, thinks that the Xbox 720, he's all but sure, actually he guarantees pretty much, the Xbox 720 is going to be the clear winner next generation. And that's his opinion. You know what? He could be right, and that's fine. But his reasoning behind it, personally to me, is retarded. Let me explain. This is what he says. Okay, and I'm quoting here verbatim. I personally believe Microsoft is in a superior position. And the reason is Sony, whenever they change consoles, the software tools that they have are lame. He goes on to say a lot of times in the past they were in Japanese, he's talking about the dev kits, not well documented, and getting the software development community up to speed. They may have been able to do it in Japan, but the American software community just says, oh boy, what a pain. And a lot of people don't realize how strong the software community is at making the hardware platform sing and dance. But Captain Bushnell, there's a lot of people out there who don't agree with you. For example, Gearbox Software CEO Randy Pitchford said in April that he's really excited about the platform. id Software's John Carmack said he's pleased with the PS4 system specs. And although I think this comment is a little over the top, Avalanche Studios co-founder Linus Blomberg said that the PS4 will outpower most PCs for years to come. That I think he had money from Sony shoved right up his ass as he was saying that, because it's a very vague statement that is totally inaccurate. Maybe I'll make a video about it. Bushnell goes on to say this too. Microsoft, because of their strong software tools, will end up with much better products sooner and easier, in my estimation. He also goes on to say, in a professional way, he thinks that PSN sucks compared to Xbox Live and all this other stuff. Now, okay, in the past, he was right. I actually remember, and this is just coming off the top of my head as I'm laying down this vocal track, the PS2, I believe, had a custom processor in it that had its own brand spanking new programming language. So if developers wanted to make games for the PS2, they had to learn a proprietary programming language for this chip for the PS2 that developers never had before. So yeah, Sony in the past was a pain in the ass balls to program for. The PS2, I heard people had to program in binary. Again, this is coming off the top of my head. This could be slightly inaccurate, but I remember seeing some articles about that like people were literally plugging in ones and zeros to program for the PS2. I could be wrong about that, or they could just been rumors from back in the day. But those are things that I remember hearing. So yeah, and the PS3, the cell processor developers to this day hate the cell processor. It's a pain in the ass to program for. But that was a Kutaragi run PlayStation. That was Ken Kutaragi's whole concept, was to make this super foreign, exotic hardware that not only was powerful, Sony also wanted developers just to have to spend all their resources making games for their platform. So by the time they wanted to port the game over to Xbox or the GameCube or whatever, it would cost too much money, because they had to use all their R&D to program for Sony's funky hardware. And Sony also thought, because they always thought they would be the leader of each console generation, that developers would always focus on their platform, not on other ones. This is a much different generation. Sony, even though right now there's a bigger install base worldwide of the PS3 than the 360, that just kind of happened. Sony learned that they could get their asses handed to them. They had to get humbled. That's why part of the reason they got rid of Kutaragi, because I'm telling you, if his hand was in PS4, they'd probably have like 3 gerbils with nipple tassels on as the main CPU, and it would be this whole funky architecture. They got rid of him. They knew they needed to refresh the PlayStation brand. And I really think this time Sony's going to come back with a vengeance. Now, I'm not saying that the 720 won't be the leader, but his reasoning behind it is dated. He's not looking at the new Sony that made a straightforward x86 architecture machine with shared memory, 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 shared memory. I'm sure, knowing the fact that they didn't make good dev kits back in the day, I'm sure Sony's coming back with good dev kits this time around. They really seemed like, when I saw them in that conference they just had, they're really trying to be whatever they weren't in the past. They know they could lose. They know they could get their ass kicked. And I really think they're trying to come back as this easy to develop for platform that's open to indie developers. It's easier for anyone who programs for the system. It's easier to write code for it. And I'm sure the dev kits are going to be, I'm almost positive, especially how Sony has approached the PS4, that the dev kits are going to be a complete 180 from what they were with the PS3 and the PS2. I really think it's a new Sony, and I think that his whole reasoning behind it, he's not looking at how things have changed with Sony. But whatever, we'll see. Maybe he could be right. I highly doubt it, and it just sounded like he was talking out of his ass. Who knows? Maybe Steve Ballmer, wrote him a check and told him to use it as toilet paper. Whatever. I don't agree with his reasoning behind it. I think he's looking to the past, not the future. But anyway, guys, what's your take on this? Do you think that Nolan Bushnell is right? Do you think I'm wrong? Or do you think, like I do, that he was just talking out of his ass and he isn't looking at the whole picture? Make sure to write your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for supporting Review Tech USA. Have a good one.